What is up everyone, it's Saber here and welcome to another Naruto What If. If you end up liking the video, please consider subscribing. It's free and you can take it back at any time and it really helps me out, and this is my second channel, so if you want some more what ifs, go check out my other channels. And with all of the YouTube formalities out of the way, let's get into it. The Wall Castle. Black John was not expecting such a cold reception when he got here. While he didn't expect any kind of party or celebration, John didn't expect a lot of scornful looks aimed at his person. Ned had warned him the previous day before they all left Winterfell, but even with all the warnings, the former bastard of Winterfell was not welcomed by many of the members of the Night's Watch. And those who were going to become members of the Night's Watch, the only two people to actually welcome his presence the best was the Lord Commander Jeor Mormont and the older blind man Maester Aemon. As he walked around, John noticed many of the Night's Watch members and their future members were those of the dishonorable persuasion. From what Tyrion had been able to learn from being his usual self, many of the people here were given the choice to take the black or have their heads taken off of the neck. Many of the men here had murdered their neighbors, or random people had raped women as young as 15 years old, and even stolen things they didn't need simply because they thought no one would catch them. For these men to see a former bastard rise to the ranks of being recognized as son of a high lord made their blood boil. John almost wished Tyrion was still here, but the imp of House Lannister had done what he set out to do and left 2 days ago back for Winterfell. Currently the angriest of all the Night's Watch members on the wall was First Ranger Alliser Thorne. The man looked like he had never known a happy moment in his life, and probably didn't if he had been up here on the wall for most of it. The very moment John had arrived, Alliser instantly targeted him with an intense degree of disdain, and he made it perfectly clear to John that he was not welcome on the wall, bastard or not, until finally John had enough of the glaring jabbing words and decided to get straight to the heart of the matter. Why do you dislike me, Alliser? What have I done to warrant your hatred of me? Asked John after having enough of the man's angry attitude. Why not? You are a bastard of a high lord. You have had a cushy lifestyle where others here have had to claw and fight for what they have now. To make things worse, you were legitimized by your father to further secure your fancy title of lord when you deserve to be in the dirt with the rest of the bastards here. You walk around like nothing can hurt you, nothing can touch you, simply because you are now named the son of a high lord of Winterfell. As far as I'm concerned, you, Jon Stark, are a snow, and I will never consider you anything more than a bastard. I don't care if you take the black or not, but if you do try to become one of us, I will make sure your time here is not one where my fellow brothers and I wait on you hand and foot, said Alliser with John glaring back and got in the man's face. I did not ask to be a bastard of Ned Stark. I was one for the first few years of my life, and it was not all pleasant. It took me years for the woman I would eventually call mother to accept me as her son. It took a near-death experience before I was granted the honor of being made an official member of House Stark, but I never took what they gave me for granted. Never. If I became a member of the Night's Watch, it would be to help defend the wall against whatever threat resided there, and I could care less what you or anyone else thought of me. My duty is to the defense of the realm, not winning a popularity contest with the rest of the members here. If you have a problem with my existence, First Ranger, then perhaps you would like to settle this with our swords and fists, challenged John, with Alliser narrowing his eyes at him. As if I want to stain my sword with your bastard blood, remarked Alliser angrily, and I assure you, First Ranger, I would rather not stain my blade with your blood either. If possible, I would have to melt the sword down into nothing after I ran it through your tiny bitter heart, countered John coldly, with Alliser looking enraged by this. Enough, Alliser, leave the Stark boy alone. He's not a member of the Watch yet, so don't act like you are his superior, commanded Jeor Mormont while walking down the steps that led to his office. Yes, Lord Commander, said Alliser angrily before walking away with a bitterness in his voice and eyes. My apologies, Lord Commander, I was just sick and tired of his constant harassment of my person, said John, with Jeor nodding with a small smile despite his cold visage. You have your father's honorable personality, Jon Stark, a very rare thing to have these dark days ahead. Besides, Alliser is a cunt with a personality as cold as the winters here. He hates everyone and everything here and everywhere, including himself, commented Jeor before the two walked into his office to talk more. My father wanted me here to help make an assessment about the Night's Watch and the wall itself. He's grown concerned regarding the number of members here being too few and the equipment being out of date, replied John, with Jeor nodding. He is right to want one. Right now the members of the Night's Watch are a fraction of what they once were at the height of its power. The numbers we possess are so low we can barely cover what we consider the minimum number for each castle along the wall. The siege equipment is outdated and some of them don't even work anymore, with the various parts needed to replace them being non-existent here. The swords and shield we have are getting to become poor in quality due to the Cold weather making it difficult to keep them properly maintained, replied Gior, with John grimacing. My father found a deserter of the Night's Watch a few months ago. The man claimed he saw the White Walkers before he lost his hand to my father's sword, said John, with Gior frowning. That was the fourth deserter we had in just this 1 month alone. We caught 3 more attempting to flee 2 weeks ago, and killed them. They all said the same damn thing in regards to the White Walkers. I assumed it was the wildlings using some kind of scare tactic to make members of the Night's Watch abandon their post, said Gior, with John now frowning. Pardon me for saying this, Lord Commander, but what if what these men saw were in fact not wildlings like you first assumed? What if what those men saw were in fact the White Walkers, questioned John, with Gior's face getting deadly serious. That's a very serious accusation, Lord Stark. One I am not inclined to think about, much less consider to be true, stated Gior coldly. But saw John held his gaze. I know you don't want to consider it to be true, Lord Commander. Even I don't want to consider it to be true either, and I am the one who just suggested it as a possibility. But what if the White Walkers do exist and they are lurking beyond the wall? What if what those men who abandoned their post actually saw the White Walkers, not wildlings but the actual White Walkers, questioned John, with Gior looking angrily at him for a second before thinking the Stark's words over in his head and calmed down somewhat. Ignorance is bliss, that is what some say. When it comes to living a life unaware of the dangers lurking the shadows, I never thought myself ignorant regarding matters of the Night's Watch, simply because I found no form of bliss in being the Lord Commander of the Night's Watch. However, if what you said is indeed true and these were in fact White Walkers, then we have far bigger problems beyond that of wildlings, said Gior, with a heavy sigh, leaving him. The Night's Watch needs more men and better equipment. I can send a raven to my father in King's Landing. He was recently made Hand of the King and can get more men to the wall while ensuring new equipment is sent here to upgrade the defenses if the White Walkers are heading our way. If albeit slowly, they are no doubt putting pressure on the wildlings to get over the wall and make them be more aggressive in the process, said John, with Gior nodding, since he would be the same way if White Walkers were on their side of the wall. Send him a raven immediately, but don't mention the White Walkers. I don't want to cause unnecessary panic through the rest of the realm. Just tell him we need more men and better supplies along with some people capable of using them, replied Gior, with John nodding at the idea. I'll do that immediately, and then I'll head back to Winterfell. No offense to the Night's Watch, Lord Commander, but I don't think I will be joining your ranks. At one point I might have considered it, but now I feel my life could be put to better use elsewhere, said John, with Gior nodding in agreement. I agree, you have great potential, John Stark, a good strong head on your shoulders, and have that look of someone who could be a great leader with the right teacher to guide you on the path. If you join the Night's Watch I could make it happen as Lord Commander, but like you said, your path in life is not here, not anymore, said Gior, with John nodding. Thank you, Lord Commander. I have no doubt you would have made a great teacher. My father Ned Stark and Uncle Benjen always speak highly of you. Should you ever need an extra sword, even if I am not one of the Night's Watch, I will answer the call and will try to help out in any way I can, said John, with Gior smiling at him. I pray I never have to call upon you, John Stark. All the same, I will keep your words in mind. Should I need that sword of yours in a battle I hope never takes place, said Gior, before the two shook hands and John left the man's office, all the while both men wondering what could have been had one man stayed to take the black and the other to train him to be his successor. Read, keep the courtyard. I hear you are reading an old book, commented Peter Baelish to Ned and Naruto while the two were talking to each other about the coming tournament. Pycelle talks too much, said Ned, while Peter smirked. Oh, he never stops talking once you get him going. A poor habit, to be sure. Speaking of habits, do you know Sir Hugh of the Vale? Not surprising really, he was actually until recently a squire, Lord Aaron's squire to be exact. You should find it interesting to know he was recently knighted almost immediately following his master's untimely death, said Peter with his usual smile on his face. Knighted for what, and why are you even telling us this, asked Ned, with both him and Naruto looking at the man with suspicion. I did promise, Cat, I would help you. Isn't this helping, asked Peter, with Ned unsure he wanted to answer that last part so chose to say something else. Where's Sir Hugh now, asked Ned, with Peter's smirk increasing. As tempting as it would be to answer, I would advise against knowing the answer. You see that little bird there, one of Varys' little spies. It seems the spider has taken quite an interest in you since coming to King's Landing. Now look over there, the hand. That one belongs to the Queen. Like Varys, she too is interested in your little investigation into Jon Arryn's death. And do you see that scepter over there pretending to be reading a book? That one is mine, offered Peter after pointing out each agent around them. Naruto made a mental note to remember who these individuals were so he would know who served who in this little web of spying. I see. I think we are done here, Lord Baelish. Thank you, replied Ned while watching the man bow and leave their presence. Interesting that he would wish us to stay away from Sir Hugh despite his warnings. You would Think he's at least answered the question of what the man was knighted for. A man like that who doesn't know or refuses to answer clearly as something to hide, all the while playing it off as being cautious and smart, remarked Naruto with Ned nodding. It does. We will have to be mindful of him if his agents are just as unsuspecting as the spiders and the queen's agents, replied Ned with Naruto nodding. And was the sage was pleased. The hand of the king was learning. I was able to retrace John's last steps prior to him inquiring about the book and his death. Apparently he visited a blacksmith in town, but to what end still eludes me. John wasn't in need of any weapons repaired or purchased, so my only conclusion drawn from this was there was something or someone else there that caught his attention. We should go there next, said Naruto with Ned nodding. Since John didn't go anywhere without reason, I will. Once the tournament is underway with the sheer number of people currently in King's Landing, and many of the knights seeking to improve or buy what they need for it, getting a moment with the blacksmith in question will be next to impossible, said Ned with Naruto nodding. Since the city was getting crowded and business would cause a wall unto itself with the line of customers wanting things just before the tournament started, and speak to Serhyu following it. I want to know what he was knighted for after John Aaron died, said Naruto, though he had an idea on what that was, or an idea on what that was. The man was clearly involved in the death of John Aaron and either put poison into the man's food or drink when John wasn't looking, or he was a distraction so someone else could do it. A few days later, the tournament made by the king to honor his new hand couldn't come soon enough for Ned, as he wanted it out of the way. At the moment, the hand of the king was with one of his loyal men, Jory from Winterfell, to investigate the blacksmith. Knowing business for the man had slowed down now that the tournament had started, Naruto himself sat down with Ned's two daughters to watch the jousting part of the competition. Arya was looking forward to the fighting because of the violence it represented and what she wanted to be a part of in life. Sansa saw it as a way to get closer to Joffrey, but the prince's interest in her was random at best, and he seemed angry when glancing past her toward the sage. The young girl wanted to tell Naruto to move elsewhere, but she knew her father would not approve of it due to the man being the ultimate protection for his daughters. When watching this display of violence, she had spent some time with Lady Mordain in the throne room, where the elderly yet sharp woman explained how once marrying Prince Joffrey and becoming queen, she would have to stand in the room to present the future king's heir. How Sansa should hope to give Joffrey both boys and girls, and even if only girls, that Joffrey would love her regardless, while Sansa knew she would one day produce boys and girls. A small part of the girl wondered if marrying Joffrey wasn't perhaps a mistake. He was charming, of that there was no doubt, but there were those moments in time where he had been cruel as well, and he clearly didn't care for the opinion of others unless their interests intertwined with his own. Sansa knew if she was going to get Joffrey to love her, then she would have to forsake everything that made her a Stark and do the things her future husband liked to do. But would such an action be worth it? Could she forsake the love her own family and the principles or honor they held for the future king, who may have questionable interests that went against everything she knew and believed in? If you keep making that scowling face at me, it's going to stay like that for the rest of your life, commented Naruto while ignoring the occasional scowling glance Sansa aimed at him. You had no right to beat up Prince Joffrey, whispered Sansa, so no one could hear them talking, and he had no right to make an attempt on your little sister's life. Yet we both did things some would say are not appropriate for our station in life, countered Naruto, with Sansa looking away from him since she knew it was true. It was an accident, whispered Sansa, with Naruto scoffing. Highly unlikely, my dear, and we all know it. Don't live a life of denial. Ignorance is bliss until someone slaps the cold taste of reality into your mouth. You may like the idea of one day being married to Prince Joffrey simply because he is a prince, and that alone is what every girl your age has dreamed of happening to them since they were told stories as a child. But hearing stories of princes and king is totally different to actually meeting either one in person. Case in point, the king himself drinking wine and filling himself to the point it's amazing he's not slurring his words too much where no one can understand him, remarked Naruto, before pointing over at Robert on his throne with Cersei sitting beside him. We've been sitting here all day. Start the damn joust before I piss myself, stated Robert drunkenly, while Cersei looked disgusted and humiliated by her husband's words before she left to get away from him. Asked Naruto, while Sansa had to admit that the current king was not the graceful, well-groomed king one would expect of royalty. Who is that? Asked Sansa in order to take her mind off Naruto's words. That would be Ser Gregor Clegane. They call him the Mountain. He is the Hound's older brother. House Clegane is known for siring giant men, but Gregor is the largest on family record, with the Hound being a close second, answered Peter from behind the group and pointed to the Hound currently eyeing his brother with loathing. I see in his opponent, asked Sansa, seeing another knight now standing next to the Mountain and looking like a dwarf. By comparison, Serhyu of the Vale. Before now he was actually the late Jon Aaron's personal squire, doesn't he look well groomed for his new position, answered Peter with amusement, while Naruto, simply watching the two, bowed respectfully to their king. Yes, yes, enough of the bloody pomp, have at it, exclaimed Robert impatiently, while spilling some of his wine in the process. With both men heading toward their horses, it was clear to all that this fight was going to be very much one-sided, and only a fool would bet against the mountain in this contest. Serhiu was just recently appointed as a knight and had no combat experience to his name, and only had a few practice runs jousting. The man only entered to gain gold and glory in proving himself worthy of his new title, so a respected house would take him into it to enter a house where he could serve and maybe one day marry into it in order to live a life of semi-luxury, namely House Lannister, with their vast wealth paying more men than any other house of the Seven Kingdoms. The mountain that rides, however, Ser Gregor Clegane's name had been infamous for years. Since he was a child, the boy who would become this man had killed long before most children could understand the concept of life and death. The man had killed, raped, and pillaged more times than could be counted by the most skilled mathematicians. He had jousted plenty of times, killed quite a few people doing so too, not as many as you would think, but the kill count at the tournaments he went to and held was still the highest of any other appointed knight. Though calling him a knight was a very big stretch, and the only reason Gregor was able to keep his title was due to Tywin Lannister having his influence deep within the crown. As expected, when the horn blew to signify the start of the match, the two men charged the other, jousting spears raised, intent on hitting the other and knocking the other man off his horse. That was the name of the game, and while the rules didn't exactly allow the death of one of the competitors, it was frowned upon, since it made spectators queasy at the sight of death, which is exactly what happened here with the death of Serhiu of the Vale at the hands of the mountain due to a long shard of wood from Gregor's lance piercing his throat at the neck. Sansa screamed like most of the people watching, since she never expected such a thing to happen and thought of the just as friendly competition between men in a duel of honor. Arya was shocked and somewhat entranced by the sight, as she expected to see some form of violence when the two men clashed, but death was unexpected all the same. Still, like Sansa, the sight of it for Arya was not only a wake-up call to how serious things were, but that things could get possibly worse during the rest of the jousting, and with even more death later on. Well, that was to be expected. Ned and I were snooping around anything related to Jon Arryn, and said squire turned knight of the man gets killed against the one opponent he had no chance of winning against. Add to the fact the Mountain is a well-known agent of the Lannisters. When called upon to serve is no real surprise. There's still something tells me that Peter was involved in this mess, since he mentioned Serhiu in the first place to Ned and myself. The man is playing both sides. He wants the wolf and the lion to do battle, make it seem like the Lannisters are covering things up by destroying or killing of anyone who knows anything surrounding Jon Arryn. Shame he doesn't realize I paid a visit to Serhiu earlier and got a confession out of him with my Sharingan. Kurama may have hated the damn thing for obvious reasons, but damn does it have its uses when required to get the truth out of people, thought Naruto, smirking behind his mask over how these conspirators believed themselves ahead of the curve when they couldn't be further behind it. Naruto also sensed Peter was happy too, but for different reasons. Not what you were expecting, I take it. Has anyone ever told you of the mountain and the hound? Offered Peter, while leaning forward to talk to Naruto. Sansa and Arya, I have heard about it. These two have not. I would prefer you not scar their minds with the story, replied Naruto coldly, while Peter was silent for a moment before deciding to continue. When Arya looked at him curiously, what's the story? Asked Arya, while Naruto sighed and Peter smirked. A lovely little tale of brotherly love. It was when the hound was just pup 6 years old, I do believe, and Gregor was a few years older. Both were big for their age. Gregor more so than his younger brother, and already a reputation at such an early age. I suppose some boys are just born with a talent to produce such violence. One evening, according to what my sources say, young Gregor found his little brother Sandor playing with a toy by a fire, and not just any toy, but Gregor's toy, a wooden knight as it were. Gregor never saying a word when seeing this, just grabbed his unsuspecting little brother by the scruff of his neck and shoved his face into the burning coals. Gregor held his little brother there while the poor boy screamed out in pain, all the while his face melting, explained Peter, with both girls going green and clearly wanted to go somewhere to throw up. Why did you tell us this? I already told you I knew the story, and the girls didn't need to know such things, questioned Naruto, with Peter smiling further. My apologizes, I just believed you three would need to know such interesting history if you decided to act next time in defense of the Mountain's next opponent. Also, I would advise you not tell anyone this story just now. If the hound knew it had gotten out, well, I fear there would not be enough knights in King's Landing to protect you, answered Peter, with his smile being as fake as size had been when interacting with Naruto back in the days of old. Trust me when I say this, Lord Baelish, I fear neither the mountain nor the hound. I have faced things that make them look like children by comparison, so do us both a favor and shut you Mouth before get out of my seat and show you why that is the case, said Naruto in a cold tone while glancing back at Peter, who decided to listen to his instincts and just lean back away from the group, which was probably for the best since Naruto was currently about 3 seconds away from stabbing the man in the face with a kunai hidden underneath his right sleeve. Essos Khal Drogo's horde. While things were progressing, Westeros' other events were transpiring in Essos and Khal Drogo's horde in it surrounded his new bride Daenerys Targaryen, or rather the feud between his wife and her brother Viserys Targaryen. After Daenerys was married to the Dothraki horse lord, she wanted to prove herself worthy of being her husband's wife and thus asked the servants what she could do to prove it. After doing so, the Targaryen woman had succeeded in getting Drogo to not only love her but give him a child that she, along with the various women folk, using their own knowledge in the matter, were certain would be a son. Something Khal Drogo was pleased to hear and knew from his time with his new wife that their son would grow up strong and fierce like his ancestors before him. However, like all good things in life came certain problems that threatened such dreams from truly becoming a reality. In this case, the problem was with Viserys and his growing impatience with Khal Drogo, since the Targaryen prince wanted to take the Dothraki horde over the narrow sea right away and straight to Westeros. Once that happened, Viserys was expecting all his secret supporters to rise up to ensure a proper foothold would be secured for his army and take the throne from the usurper that was King Robert. As time went by, Viserys began to show his impatience and temper more and more, and the restraint on the issue was showing a noticeable crack. Now within the tent of Daenerys Targaryen, he had come into the tent with his sister's handmaiden. One of his hands was gripped tightly on her hair as he was roughly dragging the woman into it, and ignoring the screaming pleas and protests. "You send this whore to give me commands? No one commands the dragon. I should have sent you back her head," exclaimed Viserys angrily before shoving the girl onto the floor and glaring at his sister. "Forgive me, Khaleesi," begged the handmaiden while Daenerys comforted her. "Hush now, it's all right, take her outside and leave us," commanded Daenerys to the other handmaiden in the room, and waited for the two women to leave before addressing her brother over his actions. "How many times do I have to tell you, you do not command me?" "No one commands a dragon," said Viserys with a madness in his eyes. "I wasn't commanding you to do anything, I was only inviting you to join me for supper," replied Daenerys, while Viserys sneered at her before walking over to a nearby table. "And what's this?" asked Viserys, while holding up some recently made clothes. "It's a gift, I made them for you," replied Daenerys, while her answer only made Viserys even angrier, and the conversation spiraled out of control, with his madness spreading until he struck her in the face twice. "You do not talk back to me, especially not you, some horse lord's personal slut, and now you've awoken the dragon," said Viserys as he moved to slap her again, and hard enough to leave a bruise, only for Daenerys to act before he could and struck Viserys in the face with the necklace, which was ironic since he first threw it at her to begin with, and he fell to the side in pain. It was clear to see that Viserys didn't expect his own sister to raise her hand against him, since he had tried to make Daenerys submissive to his whims and commands. For when the time came to use the Dothraki to take back Westeros, he didn't see his sister as his sister but as a tool, a resource, and the hilt of his sword meant to be wielded himself. In his mind, if having his sister being used as a whore for half of the world to fuck would give him the Iron Throne, then Viserys would turn her into said whore to claim the world as his own. But Viserys had underestimated Daenerys in regards to her always being his meek little sister and doing whatever he wanted no matter what she thought about the issue. Now his sister had grown a spine. Her time with Khal Drogo and the Dothraki had given his sister a newfound spirit, inner strength, and now she was using this against him. "I am Khaleesi of the Dothraki. I am the wife of the great Khal, and I carry his son inside of me. The next time you raise your hand to me, it will be the last time you have hands," stated Daenerys with wide eyes, an almost possessed look on her face that shined with power. Fearful of this new and seemingly more powerful person that was his sister, Viserys left in a run before anything else could happen. While this happened, a certain masked sage was watching from the shadows with a smile on his face and amusement flashing within his 3 eyes. "So one of the Targaryens here is just a spineless lizard when push comes to shove, and the other shows potential. Interesting. Perhaps I should intervene sooner than expected," thought the shadow clone of Naruto, watching these events and thinking things over in his head. Hours later, Daenerys was in her lady tent with Jorah Mormont, and she told him what happened here mere hours earlier with Viserys. She still couldn't believe it even happened. She had hit her own brother, the eldest of the two of them, the heir to the Iron Throne, the future King of Westeros, the dragon all men should and would fear in time. So why didn't she truly fear Viserys right now? Why did she fear herself over him? "I hit him. I can't believe I hit the last dragon of my house," exclaimed Daenerys with worry, while Jorah kept himself calm in front of her. "Your brother Rhaegar Targaryen was the last dragon of your house. Viserys isn't even a shadow of him or your bloodline. If it weren't for the fact you know for certain he is your brother, I would question his legitimacy." As a Targaryen, said Jorah, with Daenerys not exactly sure how to respond to that at first. Even if the strength of his blood is in question, he is a Targaryen and is still the king, said Daenerys, with Jorah shaking his head. Let us speak the truth now between us only. As do you want to see your brother sitting on the Iron Throne, asked Jorah, with Daenerys shaking her head. No, my brother cannot even command me anymore. How can he expect to run 7 kingdoms from a single seat in King's Landing? Still the common people are waiting for him to return. Illyrio said they are sewing dragon banners for the day he comes back to claim the Iron Throne, replied Daenerys, with Jorah shaking his head once more. The common people pray for rain, health, and a warm summer that will never end. They don't care what games the High Lords play so long as they aren't made pawns in them, said Jorah, with Daenerys looking at him now. And what exactly do you pray for, Sir Jorah? asked Daenerys curiously, while the man gave her a weak smile. Home, one that will welcome me back once I prove myself worthy of it, replied Jorah, with Daenerys nodding, since she had heard of his past crimes and understood why he was hoping for his actions and following her would prove fortuitous to him in the long run. I pray for home too. Sadly, my brother will never take back the 7 kingdoms or the Iron Throne. He couldn't even lead an army, even if my husband gave him one. For all of the strength of the Dothraki, they will never take us home, replied Daenerys sadly, yet deep down she didn't mind if the Dothraki horde of her husband didn't cross the narrow sea, which is why you, Daenerys Targaryen, need something else, something more, declared Naruto's shadow clone from the tent entrance, to the surprise of the two already in it. Who are you? asked Daenerys, and was going to call for the guards in Dothraki when she saw Jorah's face go pale. Even when reaching for his sword, the demon sage himself, whispered Jorah with a great deal of fear. It's been a long time, Jorah. You have done well for yourself since leaving Westeros, or as well as one can hear in Essos. After you fled, I suspected you would join a mercenary group like the Second Sons or some other sellsword group. Imagine my surprise to see you here, being the bodyguard of Viserys and Daenerys Targaryen. Though judging from the way things are going and what I saw earlier, you will no doubt be serving only one of the two in the near future, though which Targaryen that will be is still up in air, said Naruto, with Jorah glancing back at Daenerys before focusing back on the masked man. I won't let you hurt her, replied Jorah, though it was clear he was nervous and scared of Naruto. Hurt her? Who said I was here to hurt her? asked Naruto with a tilt of his head. You weren't sent by the usurper, asked Daenerys, while hoping she could convince him to back her side. The usurper, as you call him, Lady Targaryen, doesn't even know I'm here, and I would prefer it to stay that way, said Naruto, while hinting to Jorah that he knew the knight was a spy for the spider, and this secret conversation was not to be on record for Varys to know about. Jorah gave him a discreet nod in understanding. Then why are you here? asked Daenerys curiously, while Naruto walked around the tent to give it a once-over before turning to face her. To help you, well, to a certain degree anyway. I was originally going to intervene the day of your wedding to call Drogo, but I got the feeling the man wouldn't appreciate me there. I may have called his father and father's father a few choice names in the past in the Dothraki language, replied Naruto with gesture of his hand to say it was a minor thing that 2 hot-tempered men took way out of proportion. How do you intend to help me exactly? asked Daenerys, with Naruto tilting his head further, and she could have sworn he was smiling underneath the mask. By giving you a means to rise and take back the Iron Throne, replied Naruto, before he reached into his robes within his sleeve and took out a chest. How did you? asked Daenerys, while Naruto looked like he was smirking behind his mask, and he was smirking. Magic or the sleight of hand, take your pick, answered Naruto before he put the chest down and opened it to reveal what was inside. Is that are those? asked Daenerys before she walked toward them, and even Jorah was surprised. Dragon eggs? Yes, I took them from your brother's tent. The man is many things, but smart is not one of them. He leaves the chest unguarded. It's not even hidden from prying eyes in his tent. His mind must really be lost if he thinks no one will go into his room to take something like these eggs, replied Naruto, while Daenerys gently picked one up and held it lovingly in her hands. My brother wouldn't let me hold them. He said they were his by right, and no one, not even me, could take care of these eggs, said Daenerys, while Naruto shook his head. Your brother is an idiot. You know it. I know it. Jorah here knows it. Khal Drogo knows it, and even the horses of this Dothraki horde know it, and would say as much if they could speak, replied Naruto before he reached down and picked up another egg to give it a closer inspection. Are they really dragon eggs? Part of me has always feared that they weren't, and at worst well-painted stones meant to trick us, asked Daenerys, with Naruto inspecting the one in his hand before nodding. I know dragon eggs. I've seen dragons, and they're eggs. These are definitely the eggs from a dragon. No doubt the female dragon in question gave her life to make these 3 before perishing, replied Naruto sadly, since he had at one point helped and nurtured dragons until he was sure they could take care of themselves, and for a time they had until various events came around to destroy them. Are you going to bring these dragons back to life? asked Daenerys, with Naruto giving her a mischievous look with his 3 eyes. Not exactly. You are, or rather you will one day 'Cause these eggs to hatch, my dear, of course they will need a bit of a push in the right direction, so my plan is in two parts. First, I use my power to give them a good foundation to come back into the world when the time is right, said Naruto before using his chakra on the dragon eggs and made the glow with life. And then what's the second part, asked Daenerys after he finished hers and put all three in the chest, before giving her a sad look. It involves you in order to bond with you and obey your commands. It requires a means of hatching them befitting your Targaryen bloodline. Sadly, I cannot tell you, nor will I so long as your brother is still alive. If Viserys knew what I just did and were to learn the truth behind how a human can hatch these dragons with the right situation, he wouldn't hesitate to sacrifice you. He already did that with your arranged marriage to Khal Drogo for the man's army, answered Naruto with Daenerys frowning. I don't understand. In order to bring back the dragons, I must be offered as a sacrifice, asked Daenerys with a hint of concern in her voice. No, nothing like that, but to awaken these eggs a sacrifice of sorts will be required, and it will hurt a lot. I have seen your future, Daenerys Targaryen, or at least part of it, in a moment of time. In this said future you will experience a great deal of emotional pain following something horrible befalling you, pain beyond measure. I won't say what, for you will try to prevent it and thus make things worse. What I need to do is plant the knowledge in your mind where it will remain locked away until the said moment in time does in fact happen, said Naruto before raising his index finger in his left hand that was now glowing with a blue flame at the tip and moved toward the now slightly frightened woman. My baby, asked Daenerys with Naruto pausing in front of her and saw Yora reaching for his sword slowly, engaging how to strike such a man without being caught. I honestly don't know. While I do have the power to see the future, only fragments of time and blurry images at best. The moment in time that I witnessed did not allow me to see you personally, whether still pregnant or following the birth of your child. What I do know and saw from the brief moment in time was that you will be without question a mother, answered Naruto in a cryptic sense. And the knowledge you wish to give me, it won't hurt, my baby, asked Daenerys while she eyed the index finger of his hand, currently covered in a blue fire. Aside from a minor headache that will go away within a few minutes, it won't even hurt you. I'm sorry for the secrecy regarding this part of the process, but Viserys can't know about the knowledge I am giving you in any way possible. You are the key to bringing these dragons back, my dear, and you will soon enough. But if done ahead of schedule and with Viserys seeking to control them, it will only spell disaster for you, if not everyone, in this Dothraki horde, before I could come back to restrain them, replied Naruto, with the young Targaryen woman reluctantly nodding. So long as my baby isn't harmed, I will accept this knowledge, replied Daenerys with Naruto nodding sadly. My dear, when the information on what to do is unlocked and how it was unlocked by what will one day befall you soon enough, you will very well wish neither of us had ever met, but you must suffer. Daenerys Targaryen, nothing is truly earned without some measure of sacrifice you want to take, then you must give as well. You will learn that soon enough in this game, not of thrones but of life, thought Naruto before touching her forehead with his index finger and implanted the knowledge of how to hatch the dragon eggs inside her head. When it was over, Naruto backed away to see Daenerys frown a bit at the headache she was told would hit her. Sure enough, minutes later the throbbing in her temples went away and she saw Yora looking at her to see if she was okay. Smiling, she nodded that she was okay and turned to thank Naruto for action, only to find he was gone with a single note on the table next to where he had just been standing. Daenerys, I have been watching you and your idiot brother for some time now. I actually helped in your escape from Dragonstone when Robert's armies and Stannis' fleet moved to take your ship. Both weren't very happy with me when I denied them what they wanted in terms of your immediate death, but like Ned Stark, I do not believe in the killing of an innocent child. I wanted to see what you and your brother would do once grown up to face the world, and you didn't disappoint me. Your brother, however, did. The madness in him has clearly taken control of his mind, so be wary of him for your baby's sake. All I can do now is provide advice to you in this message, which will destroy itself once you've finished reading, so don't be surprised when it falls to pieces like brittle parchment. In short, my advice to you is this: from one wise man to a young woman seeking to grab her destiny by the throat and put it in a steel jawed trap, keep your eyes sharp and your mind sharper. Be mindful of who you trust, and those you can trust without question are to be kept close to the chest, but not too close should they decide to turn things against you. Remember, you may one day become the queen of the 7 kingdoms, or damn well get close to the goal in some form. The people around you will want to get in on the ground floor, and if they see signs of your campaign about to fail, they might jump ship to what they believe is the winning side by offering up you in return for something like gold or something more material they can actually hold with their hands. Should you ever find a place to rule and become queen, whether in King's Landing or somewhere here is Essos, be kind to your subjects, be fair to them, but be firm as well when it comes to dealing out punishments for crimes they have committed. Show you have strength and not afraid to use it, but at the same time use just the right amount each time. Rule with precision When it comes to deciding matters over quick clumsy ones that you would only find when looking at a drunken butcher, I honestly do not know if you are in fact worthy of the Iron Throne or even ruling over a kingdom in general. You do have the potential, which is more than I can say or see regarding your idiot brother. He will not be king of the 7 kingdoms, of that I am certain. Even you can see it. Keep those dragon eggs close. Make sure nothing happens to them until the time comes to see them hatch. You will know what to do when it is time to perform the ritual for it. All I can say now is good luck, Daenerys Targaryen, and may you grow up to be the queen I know in my heart you can be in this life. Best regards, Naruto of House Uzumaki, the Demon Sage. PS Don't tell anyone about this letter. After it's destroyed, I still do have a reputation to maintain. And soon after reading the last part, Daenerys saw a symbol on the paper glow and the parchment dissolved into tiny pieces before being blown away in the wind, entering the tent. The sage's powers are indeed every bit the legend I bards always sing in the taverns, said Yora, with Daenerys nodding before she looked at the dragon eggs in the chest and touched each one gently. Of that there's no doubt, Sir Yora, we must protect these 3 eggs, not just from my brother but from everyone else when they hatch, replied Daenerys, with Yora staring at the eggs. If they hatch, Khaleesi, countered Yora, and was met with a firm glare. Look at these eggs and tell me they do not have the potential to hatch, asked Daenerys, with Yora seeing each egg looked more alive than they had been earlier. Perhaps they will remember the sage left the means to awaken them locked within your mind, only to be free to use when something of extreme emotional pain happens, countered Yora, and remind the woman of what she feared in regards to what that pain might be to hatch the eggs, which is why you are going to ensure such pain never happens. While I do not mind the idea of hatching these eggs and raising 3 dragons, I will not pay such a price if it is what I suspect or close to what I suspect, replied Daenerys, while Yora nodded. If that is your wish, Khaleesi, said Yora, while deep down he knew telling Robert about Daenerys being pregnant was going to cause a severe backlash later for the woman. In the deep reaches of his mind, the loyalty to crown and aiding them in this way to one day kill this woman along with her unborn child was considered wrong. In Yora's mind, she was a Targaryen, but Daenerys held none of the madness her brother did and could still see growing in him. Perhaps his madness cancelled hers out simply because he got it first and made the man's sister want to become the opposite of him. Madness destroying madness, an interesting concept worthy of discussion among maesters or perhaps the gods of old, and the new had flipped the coin like they did with Viserys, with the opposite outcome, with Daenerys being sane. Whatever the case, Yora knew that even with all the information he sent out earlier that would be reaching the spider, he would defend this woman from harm, any harm for that matter. He knew his information was worthy of a royal pardon, but deep down Yora also knew such a pardon signed by the king was also the death warrant for Daenerys and the baby she carried. He might as well have it signed his signature for the pardon to come back to Westeros with the blood and lives of 2 innocent Targaryens. At the very least, he could keep an extra eye out for future assassins and stop them when they try to make the attempt. Yora also knew the one advantage here was he knew the assassins would be coming straight for Daenerys. He wasn't sure how or when or where they would strike, only that they were going to come soon and they would be relentless. King's Landing. Hand of the King. Ned was in his office. During the jousting, he had gone with Jory to look into Jon's last known location before he was killed and saw the blacksmith there. The man was of an elderly persuasion, nothing special about him in Ned's eyes, good with his tools and hands and making armor and weapons, nothing else. But the much younger man and apprentice of the blacksmith was another matter. Ned had known Robert since they were kids, growing up under the guidance of Jon Arryn, and one day become full-grown men. So when Ned practically saw the spitting image of Robert during his younger years in them young man named Gendry, it made sense what Jon was looking for. Gendry was one of Robert's many bastards. No doubt it was with one of the first prostitutes Robert had ever had relations with following his marriage to Cersei. If the age of the young man was anything to go by, Gendry had all of Robert's features, from the hair to the eyes and the muscular build, which was enhanced by his time working for the blacksmith. With a proper education and right guidance, if Gendry was a legitimate child of Robert's, he would be the heir to the throne. But that didn't explain why Jon was looking into one, if not more, of Robert's bastards all throughout King's Landing. And how was it connected to the book containing the lineage of all the great houses of Westeros? Was there some kind of secret hidden in the book he wasn't seeing that others did, and thus got Jon Arryn killed? His thoughts on the matter were interrupted when Jory came in and bowed. "My lord, her grace the queen, and here to see you," said Jory before he moved aside, and Cersei entered the room. "Before leaving, your grace," said Ned with a nod of his head respectfully. "You're missing out on the tournament. My husband is honoring you with," commented Cersei while glancing at the book Ned was reading. "Putting my name on it doesn't make it mine. I was against the tournament from the start, since it was an unnecessary expense. The crown is already deep in debt, well over 6 million, as it is, with half of that owed to your father, and it does not need Any more added to the amount, replied Ned, while Cersei's eyes widened in surprise since she didn't know that piece of information. She would have to send a raven to her father about striking his half of the debt once she made Joffrey the new king. I'm carrier because I believe we should put what happened on the King's Road and at the inn behind us, the ugliness of it all with the fighting and dragging everyone out of their beds like that to face Robert, like common criminals. It was a little extreme, I will admit, as much. Still, mothers tend to go to the extreme when it comes to their children they love, especially after one of them has been hurt by a certain three-eyed sage, said Cersei, with Ned not saying anything at first. He was protecting one of my daughters just as you were protecting your son, countered Ned at last, with Cersei narrowed her eyes since she knew it was true but didn't like it all the same. How is Sansa? asked Cersei, curiously. Surprisingly enough, she likes it here, replied Ned, with Cersei smiling. Now she's the only Stark who does, remarked Cersei, while Ned looked at her with piercing eyes. What are you doing here? asked Ned, while finding it strange the woman would come to see him about this of all times. I might ask the same of you. What is it you hope to achieve in King's Landing besides helping my husband not make a bigger fool of himself than he already has for nearly the past 2 decades, said Cersei, with Ned seeing her gaze move to the book now on the desk. For a second, Jon Arryn was murdered. I intend to find out who did the deed and bring him forward to face King's justice. The man raised Robert and myself when we were mere boys. To not find out who killed him would be an insult to his memory. Besides, Robert called on me to serve and protect the realm to the best of my abilities. I will do so until he tells me to do otherwise, answered Ned, with Cersei shaking her head. I know what you are doing. When it comes to Robert, you can't change him. No one can change him. Once he sets his mind on something, it stays there until the deed is done. He will do what he wants, which is all he's ever done. The best you can ever do is pick up the pieces left in the wake of his actions, explained Cersei, while she saw Ned shrugging. If that is my job, then so be it, replied Ned calmly, since he knew his duty to Robert and did not mind it one bit, considering who else could have sat on the throne instead of Robert, and he would have to serve. It was a fair trade-off. King's Road at the moment. Catelyn and Roderick had been riding on horseback for some time now before stopped at a nearby inn to rest until making it back to Winterfell. The sooner the better for Catelyn, as she still worried for her son, who should have woken up by now and hopefully told Robb what he knew regarding his first near-death experience. Now more than ever, the Tully-born woman was sure the Lannisters were involved with what happened to Bran, and even the death of Jon Arryn with what has happened recently in King's Landing. At the same time, Catelyn knew they had to keep themselves from being recognized by the different bannermen staying here while representing their lords. Cat knew she would be recognized by well over half the men at the inn if they really looked at her and didn't want them to make a fuss. Sadly, her desire to stay anonymous while on the road was ruined by an outside source and from a house she was greatly despising at the moment. I'm sorry, my lord, we are filled up, said the innkeeper, while Cat frowned from her spit where she could see who it was. My men can sleep in the stables. As for myself, I don't require a large room given my own small size, said one Tyrion Lannister while walking in with skip in his step. Surely, my lord, we have nothing, said the innkeeper, while Tyrion smiled a knowing smile. Is there nothing I can do to remedy this? questioned Tyrion, while holding up a small amount of gold dragons in his hands and giving the various men in the room who wishes to give up their room-based look. You can have mine, offered a bearded man who was clearly a sellsword among the group. Now there's a clever man, replied Tyrion before handing the man the gold, before telling his man Jorian to dine with him. Lord Lannister, may I entertain you while you eat in honor of your father's victory at King's Landing? asked the bard in the corner, in the hopes of gaining some of that ever-valuable Lannister gold. Nothing will more ruin my supper. Oh, Lady Stark, what an unexpected pleasure. I was sorry to miss you in Winterfell. I met with your son Robb and young Bran. I was happy to see your second youngest had recovered from his injuries, said Tyrion, and his words turned many heads in the room with wide eyes. To the short man's surprise, Catelyn did not look happy to see him. Quite the opposite. I was still Catelyn Tully the last time I stayed here. You, sir, is that the black bat of Harrenhal I see embedded on your coat? questioned Catelyn to one knight of a house who served her family loyalty. It is milady, said the man from Harrenhal proudly, and is the lady when a true and honest friend to my father, Lord Holster of Riverrun? asked Catelyn, with the man nodding. As she has said, the knight the Red Stallion was always a welcome sight at Riverrun. My father counts Jonos Bracken amongst his oldest and most trusted bannermen, said Catelyn, while the knight from House Bracken nodded. My lord is honored by his trust, said the knight from House Bracken. I envy your father and all his fine friends, Lady Stark, but I don't quite see the purpose in this, said Tyrion, with his mind confused on what was going on here. I know your sigil as well, the twin towers of House Frey. How fares your lord, sir? asked Catelyn to the knight from House Frey. Lord Walder is well, my lady. He has asked your father the honor of his presence on his 90th name day, when he plans to take another Wife, said the knight from House Fry, with Catelyn nodding. Huh, said Tyrion, who thought that tidbit of information was interesting before he was refocusing himself on Catelyn Stark. And by the old gods, and the new, did she look angry with him? What in the seven hells did he do to make her so upset? He had been a fine gentleman to her when in Winterfell during the time King Robert was there. Granted, Tyrion didn't really see her as much as his other siblings, but it didn't mean he had done anything to provoke the wrath of this woman standing in front of him before or after he left Winterfell for the Wall and then back again to the home of House Stark. In fact, he had given young Bran Stark a gift in the form of schematics made for a climbing harness mechanism he had come up with during his time in Winterfell, and reading within their library, it was actually from an old design made ironically by Bran the Builder in his older years, but Tyrion had enhanced it with his own modifications and given it to the young lord as a gift so the poor Stark boy didn't fall again. He really did have a soft spot for bastards, cripples, and broken things, considering how messed up his own life was back in Casterly Rock and with his family. It wasn't all that surprising this man came into my house as a guest, and there he conspired to murder my son, a boy of 10, in the name of King Robert and those good lords you serve. I call upon you to seize him, and help me return him to Winterfell to await king's justice," exclaimed Catelyn angrily with a fire in her eyes. You would think the person on the harsh end of said gaze would turn to ash, and just like that every single knight in the room had drawn their swords and pointed them all right at Tyrion. What seven fresh hell did I do again to deserve this, thought Tyrion while seeing so many swords pointing at him, and to think all he had come in here for was food, wine, and a room sleep. And Tyrion for his part looked shocked, confused, and wondering when in the seven hells he had time to conspire to murder Bran Stark. Was he really that drunk the night before the royal caravan had left Winterfell? However, no sooner had these knights pointed their swords at Tyrion did the very world around them, Catelyn and Roderick, seem waver. It was as if the world around them was now in a nearly invisible ocean where all things except the three of them couldn't move. Looking around, they soon found a figure emerging from the shadows, to reveal it was Naruto in all his masked glory, monk staff in hand and a twinkle of mischief in his three eyes. Damn cat, when you want to make a point you really make a point, remarked Naruto with a chuckle soon after. Naruto, what are you doing here? You're supposed to be at King's Landing, asked Cat in shock while Tyrion was trying to figure out what Naruto did to everyone around him to be frozen like this. Relax, everything is fine so far. What you see before you is a copy of the original sent to stick to the shadows to keep an eye on you and Roderick in order to oversee that your trip back to Winterfell was a safe one, and to think it was all going so smoothly before you decided to make a lynch mob out of Knight's great speech. By the way, I found it to be very moving, said Naruto as he saw Cat was not amused. Tyrion tried to murder Bran, my son, said Catelyn while pointing at Tyrion. I don't see how that is possible, since I was nowhere near your son for most of the time I was at Winterfell. And not only that, but why would I try to kill the boy? He has a good head on his shoulders and a knack for climbing. From what I have been told, I actually gave him the plans for a climbing harness he can have made to ensure the next time there is something to stop his fall, replied Tyrion with Catelyn glaring at him. Someone from House Lannister tried to murder my son twice, once by pushing him out of a window at the top of the tower, the second was with a rare Valyrian steel dagger with dragon bone hilt, one of a kind from what I have been told. One I was told that you had in your very possession at one point, countered Catelyn with Tyrion frowning. I don't deny the blade is mine, I won it on a bet from Littlefinger, but that doesn't mean I gave it to an assassin. Such a rare item is not something I would wish to have someone I hired to kill use. Not that I'm saying I did it, mind you, replied Tyrion quickly at the end when he saw Catelyn's eyes harden further. What did you do with the dagger before now, asked Naruto with Tyrion thinking for a moment. It was originally in with my luggage. I had planned to show it to Ned Stark. Given his own weapon ice was made of the same steel as my dagger, I wanted him to inspect my weapon and get his opinion on it, but I had indulged in too much wine and fallen asleep with the pigs and had to freshen up. After I did, I went looking for it only to find that the dagger wasn't there. I suspected it was taken from me by my nephew Joffrey, since the boy knew about it and wanted one for himself as it was one of a kind. I suspected the lad had taken it and hidden it elsewhere among his own luggage. It wouldn't be the first time the boy has taken something that doesn't belong to him and then say it is his by right as being a prince and future king of the Seven Kingdoms to get his way. My sweet sister does encourages his behavior more often than she should, explain Tyrion with Catelyn not being impressed by his story. I will not believe anything you say, said Catelyn angrily. No, but I'm sure you would believe what I have to say, offered Naruto with Catelyn, Tyrion and Roderick looking at him. I get the feeling none of us are going to like what you have to say, remarked Roderick with Naruto nodding slightly. With all due respect to Lady Stark and her grand speech to rally these men to her, cause I know Tyrion did not try to kill Bran on those two separate occasions, replied Naruto with Tyrion looking pleased to hear this, since the sage was always said to speak the truth to others even when they didn't like it. It was his dagger, countered Caitlyn, while Naruto shook his head. Even if it was his dagger, he never gave it to an assassin to use in any case. Why would Tyrion want to kill Bran? Your son has done nothing to earn Tyrion's ire. Besides, Tyrion himself does not hire assassins to kill someone. He may be a Lannister, but he's also one of the few who doesn't resort to that type of thing. It's not in his character, replied Naruto with Caitlyn lessening her glare at the now happy dwarf of a man in front of her. It may not have been Tyrion, but it was a Lannister who tried to kill Bran, said Caitlyn, with Naruto nodding in agreement about that much being true. Yes, that is very much true, but not just one Lannister, it was two. If you must know, the two guilty people who made the attempt twice on young Bran's life were in fact Jaime and Cersei Lannister, your siblings. Tyrion, answered Naruto, with Tyrion now looking from pleased to horrified. Why in the name of the seven did Jaime and Cersei do that? Not even being in the Kingsguard and the Queen of the Seven Kingdoms get immunity from that, stated Tyrion, with Naruto glancing at Caitlyn and Roderick to see they were shocked to hear this too, because Jon Arryn suspected Robert's children that Cersei brought into the world were not really his children. In fact, Bran caught Jaime and Cersei being sexually intimate in the tower, and Jaime threw him out of it to keep their secret from being discovered. When you told Myrcella about how Bran would live when asked in front of her parents, Jaime sent his agent with your dagger to finish the boy off in his sleep. He also figured since you didn't show the weapon off to anyone aside from a select few, no one would know who the dagger's owner really was, and thus would be the perfect weapon to end Bran's life before his awakening, explained Naruto, with Tyrion looking shocked by this news while Caitlyn and Roderick looked livid. Are any of the Queen's children Roberts? asked Roderick, with Naruto shaking his head. Not one drop of Baratheon blood runs through their veins. None have a right to the Iron Throne. Not that Jaime or Cersei will admit as much, since they know what would await them if the secret got out. The secret they would anyone and everyone to ensure it stayed buried, explained Naruto, while Tyrion groaned and mumbled something no one could understand. We have to tell Ned, we have to tell King Robert, exclaimed Caitlyn, with Naruto shaking his head. No, you can't actually. First, there's no real proof of what I have told you outside the fact one would have to question the looks on all three children, something Cersei could easily spin as saying her Lannister blood from her family is stronger than the Baratheon blood, and Robert, the evidence to dispute this is in fact in the book Jon Arryn was looking into the day before he died. While a compelling argument to work with, it is still not enough, and even parading all of Robert's bastards to counter what Cersei will claim the Grand Maester is in the back pocket of the Lannisters. He could easily claim in rare times the recessive blood can come out instead of the usually dominant side that in this case would normally be Robert's blood. Your current evidence weighed against a Grand Maester and his years of experience will not be enough, short of a confession by Cersei and Jaime to the axe that brought all three children into the world. You need hard evidence to say such accusations are in fact true, replied Naruto, with the three people in the room not liking this one bit. But Bran is awake right now. Surely he told Robb and the others what he saw in the tower, countered Caitlyn, while Tyrion frowned, since Maester Luwin had said otherwise when Bran was asked about it. No doubt done to keep me from learning the truth in case I was part of the conspiracy to murder Bran. Well played, Maester Luwin, well played, thought Tyrion to himself, and Cersei and Jaime could easily say it was the perverted dream of a 10-year-old boy with a questionable imagination that requires another maester or possibly a high septon inspect his mind for improper thoughts. The evidence against them could be challenged, and the Lannisters could spin the accusations against you. They could say the accusations are made by an angry, spiteful woman who feels her husband should be king over the current one, and is trying to usurp the crown with countless unsupportive lies, explained Naruto, with Caitlyn calming down and thinking things over. Knowing my siblings and father the way I do, that is the exact approach I would take in their position, thought Tyrion, while seeing Lady Stark coming to terms with the truth as to how the truth they just discovered could easily be swept under the rug. So what do we do now, great sage? We can't exactly stop this event around us from not happening, said Roderick, while indicating to this moment in time Naruto had frozen. No, you can't undo it, nor should you try to stop this. I have some other suspicions about who helped the Lannisters in killing Jon Arryn. While they have many spies under their employment, not even those two could have learned of Jon's movements so quickly. Even if Pycelle sides with the Lannisters, know someone else is involved, since the poison that took Jon Arryn had to be delivered to him while he was eating or drinking. Most likely someone close to Jon. In order to make it happen, someone who wants the wolf and the lion to do battle so he or she can pick up the pieces when it's all over, said Naruto as he explained what he and Ned found out so far, with Sir Hugh of the Vale being knighted shortly after Jon's death. We need to go to the Vale. I need to speak to my sister about this, since she sent me the raven that started my suspicions in the first place, replied Caitlyn at last, since her sister was in the Vale ruling over it until Robin came of age. And I will accompany you, said Naruto, to the shock of the trio. In front of him, are you sure? Asked Kat, with Naruto nodding. Chances are your speech to inspire these knights to raise their swords against Tyrion will reach the ears of your enemies among House Lannister in King's Landing, where your husband is currently working to discover who killed Jon Arryn. My being with your group and Tyrion agreeing to come with us back to Winterfell after our stop in the Vale of his own volition. Mind you, to resolve this simple misunderstanding on your part will enable you to save face when accusations are sent flying back, said Naruto, with Catelyn now looking at Roderick, who nodded in agreement over it. Very well, we will do this your way, Naruto. I just hope whatever it is you are planning will prove worth the effort, said Kat, with Naruto nodding. I hope so too. Tyrion, are you up for another adventure? Asked Naruto, with Tyrion giving him a small smile and shrug. What do I have to lose aside from my head? Asked Tyrion, while Naruto chuckled. No one will take your head, Tyrion. Out of all the Lannisters in your house, you are the only one worthy of keeping. There's your uncle Kevin is a distant second, but just barely, since he supports your father on questionable matters, said Naruto, with Tyrion smiling and nodding. In that case, I guess we are off to the Vale, stated Tyrion, while Naruto gave a single nod. That we are, my friend. Everything and everyone around you will come back into focus in a few seconds. They have no idea about what's going on regarding this conversation, and for sake of the future I would advise you keep it that way, replied Naruto, with the three nodding before he cancelled the genjutsu that covered the room and easily returned to life's regularly scheduled program, with Tyrion Lannister officially being taken prisoner by Catelyn Tully Stark. King's Landing jousting tournament. Ned decided to take a small break from his duties as Hand of the King and go see the tournament his friend and king had created for him. He knew Robert meant well, but the man didn't know what it meant to restrain oneself, and listening to advice when given. Ned could actually see why Jon had trouble as Hand of the King, since the elderly man had to deal with Robert's vices and wrestle with the various players on the small council to make headway in protecting the Seven Kingdoms. The man had been shoveling a never-ending pile of shit with a spoon and making little to no progress, because the shit kept on being piled up. So you finally showed. I take it your duties got so boring it was either come here or slice your desk and the paperwork on it in half, joked Naruto, with Ned glaring at him for a second. Mind your tongue. The paperwork Jon had before my term as Hand was immense and had to be handled. My own is no better, replied Ned, with Naruto chuckled, since it had reminded him of two Hokages who grumbled about the stacks upon stacks of paperwork they had to do in their office. Silence soon covered the area until Peter Baelish left to handle whatever it is he needed to handle. Sir Hugh is dead. He died jousting against the mountain, said Naruto seriously, while seeing Sansa flinch at the memory. Damn, we needed him alive for questioning, whispered Ned, while Naruto said nothing over the matter. I highly doubt he knew anything. He was a pawn, Ned. No doubt the ones we seek send out agents within agents within agents before getting in touch with the late Sir Hugh. It is my personal experience that pawns are considered expendable, because even if they know too little, it is just enough to cause enough of a ripple to start something. Whoever wanted to kill Sir Hugh before we could talk to him knew he had enough information to cause a ripple, and we would follow the trail to find who might lead us to the real culprits, said Naruto, with Ned sighing. The road to getting justice is a long and harsh one at times, said Ned sadly, with Naruto nodding in agreement. Yes, most of the time it is near impossible, but fortunately for us, sooner or later justice will be served in due time, replied Naruto, while Ned nodding, since he was expecting his hard work to eventually pay off. I found out more about why Jon went to the blacksmith before asking for the book, commented Ned, with Naruto nodding, and asked Naruto to see what Ned would tell him. The blacksmith employed one of Robert's bastards, possibly the first one, a boy named Gendry. Looks like the spitting image of Robert in his younger years. He has everything that says Robert is his father. The hair, eyes, and the build are all Robert's features. With the right education, Gendry could become a member of House Baratheon, said Ned, with Naruto smirking. No doubt, but we both know Cersei would never allow a contestation to the throne and all that, said Naruto, while Ned sighed knowing it was true. Where's Arya? asked Ned at last when he noticed his youngest daughter was not here. She's at her lessons, answered Sansa, since she saw Arya had seen enough jousting by now to get bored with it, and decided her time was better spent with her dancing instructor over this. Sirio says she's making some good progress. He's impressed by her determination to learn how to dance properly, said Naruto, while the mountain made his way over to the king while on his horse and saluted. It's the Knight of Flowers, Sir Loras Tyrell, commented Sansa, with the said Knight of the Reach coming out next, and approached the trio before handing the girl a flower. A beautiful flower for a beautiful woman, said Sir Loras, with Sansa taking the flower from his hands. Thank you, Sir Loras, replied Sansa, while Naruto held back a snicker, since he was sure the girl would be shocked to know the man's preferences did not align with women but rather with the same gender as himself, preferably with a certain master of law on the small council. Though considering how society these days frowned upon such people, it was expected of someone like Sir Loras to keep such things from being known, and playing the part of the charming knight who could woo any woman was a Good cover in Naruto's mind. As the Knight of Flowers rode his horse up to salute the king, the mountain's own ride started to become agitated for some reason and began to move around. It took its rider to jerk the reins with his gauntlet-covered hand almost harshly to snap the horse away and to get into position to face Ser Loras Tyrell. When both men got their lances and shields, Sansa looked away while grabbing her father's hand, since the image of what happened to Ser Hugh was still etched in her mind and she didn't want to see another person killed again. 100 gold dragons on the mountain, called out Peter Baelish now that he had returned and seen the two getting into position. I'll take that bet, said Renly, while many were surprised someone would bet against the mountain since the giant of a man had dominated the joust due to his immense size and strength. Now what will I buy with 100 gold dragons? 8 dozen barrels of Dornish wine, or perhaps a girl from a pleasure house in Lys? Questioned Peter to himself. You could even buy a friend though, considering you, Lord Baelish. 100 gold dragons may not be enough, commented Renly with a smirk on his face. He's going to die, commented Sansa. Since the last time the mountain faced a knight she thought was handsome, Ser Hugh had been killed via a splinter of wood lodged right in his throat. Ser Loras rides well, said Ned, while hoping his words would remove his daughter's fear of what she assumed was to come when the horn bellowed to start the match. Both men charged toward the other with the intent to win the joust, but as the mountain's horse got closer to Loras' horse, it started to become increasingly agitated and move almost uncontrollably. This gave Loras the much-needed opening, with the mountain distracted by his ride, and thrust a lance right at the giant with enough force to knock his opponent down. Naturally, the people that cheered at seeing someone best the mountain in this event. Such a shame, Littlefinger. I wonder if would have been nice for you to finally have a friend, commented Renly with a smirk, since he knew of Loras's plan ahead of time and was waiting for someone to bet on the mountain so he could bet against them. And tell me, Lord Renly, when will you be having your own friend at your side? Asked Peter while motioning with his head towards Ser Loras. Peter was one of the few people who knew both Renly and Loras preferred the company of the male persuasion over the opposite gender. In fact, Peter also knew what few did in terms of the two men being lovers. Naturally, the laws of men and gods forbid it, but the Master of Coin felt the gods, if they were real, forbid a lot of things, and was all the more reason to embrace them in his mind. Hence why he had brothels that catered to all kinds of clientele who had all kinds of gods frowning vices to enjoy while living in this world. He also figured Loras had some kind of plan to best the mountain in the joust, but didn't believe it would work, and thus wagered small amount of his money on the giant of a man from the infamous House Clegane. When Renly bet against him for Ser Loras to win, it was clear to Peter that the Master of Law knew something no one else aside from his secret lover did. Of course, no one in the crowd knew how Ser Loras had technically cheated, with the exception of Renly and Naruto himself. With his enhanced sense of smell, the sage was able to determine the horse the Knight of Flowers was riding was female, and in heat the horse the mountain was riding was male, and smelled the scent coming from Ser Loras' ride with its natural male horse instincts starting to kick, and the only reason it was unable to fulfill its mating instincts with the female horse was due to the mountain on its back and commanding it to obey him. Speaking of the mountain, apparently the man's already short yet very legendary temper had gotten the best of him, and was not pleased at losing against Ser Loras. He knew his horse was to blame, but said horse was not in range to lash out with his fury, and decided on targeting someone else entirely. Sword, yelled Gregor Clegane angrily, and a squire, his or just some no-named one, quickly came with his sword and presented it to him before taking it out, and quickly brought it down on Ser Loras's horse with the single swing, beheading the poor animal in front of everyone watching. People gasped in shock, many women cried, some quickly shielded their children from the gore, and the men were too scared to even react. Those who could draw their swords were too afraid to step in to do something, since they were afraid of being cut down by the rampaging mountain, who was now focusing on Ser Loras. After the Knight of Flowers fell into the dirt after being hit with the flat side of the giant man's sword, it was clear what the mountain intended to do, and no one had the strength to stop it, or rather 3 people did, but the first one didn't have ice with him to wield against the mountain. The second man had drawn his sword but wasn't close enough to reach out in time to swing his sword to deflect his brother's blade. As for the third person, the man no one expected to appear almost out of thin air had done so with only a mere ripple in the air indicating his arrival, and with his bare hand had successfully grabbed the sword of the mountain, coming down on Ser Loras like it was nothing. This person, it was Uzumaki Naruto, the demon sage in all his masked glory. If there's one thing I cannot stand in this world since I have walked in it, is seeing sore losers like you act out like this, stated Naruto coldly before he hit Gregor Clegane in his armored chest with an open palm strike that sent the giant of a man flying backwards. Many were shocked to see this. None ever expected the sage to not only appear from one point to the next seemingly out of thin air, but actually struck the mountain that rides in the chest with a Single strike. No one expected the blow to do that much damage or sent the giant Clegane off his feet and flying back well over 15 of those feet right into the wooden barrier for a wall. Many of the stories and songs told by the bards at taverns, the brothels, and inns throughout the 7 kingdoms spoke of the great sage's power, his skill with a sword, with magic, and his skills in hand-to-hand combat. Many thought the stories were exaggerated to make the songs and stories earn the bards more money when they spoke them. Now people were seeing that perhaps these very songs and stories all told by the bards in these places were quite possibly true. You fucking masked cunt, I will kill you, and all your loved ones. I will do to you what I did to Elia Martell and her children, exclaimed Gregor Clegane angrily after getting out of the now destroyed wooden barrier of a wall he was on and moved to grab his sword a few feet in front of him, only to find himself wrapped up in ethereal chains, with 2 of them piercing his legs in the back of the knees. Gregor cried out in surprise and pain as he fell forward, but was yanked back after his knees hit the ground to keep him from falling forward face first into the ground. But what was more shocking to the injured giant was the chains themselves did not come from the masked man in front of Gregor, but rather it came from behind the mountain in the form of a copy of the sage himself. That's pretty hard to do, since all my loved ones have long since been dead before the 7 kingdoms were ever forged into being, remarked Naruto's shadow clone as it held the mountain in place. There are 2 of them. How is that possible? Is his magic that potent? Could he be a warlock from Karth? Could the second one be an apprentice? Shouldn't the king stop this? Those were the questions being asked, and many were shocked to see 2 of them, and one was shooting strange chains out of his back to hold Gregor Clegane of all people in them. Naturally, the mountain tried to struggle and break the chains with his monstrous strength he was well known for using on his enemies. His yells, threats, and curses now echoing throughout the tourney grounds were all that could be heard by this point. Some looked to the king to do something, but the man was too busy staring and watching the scene play out before him with an uncertain look on his face. Even the queen and her children watching this, namely Joffrey, were unsure how to react to this, since they could not openly defend the mountain from harm, not after the stun he pulled in killing Ser Loras's horse and then moving to kill the said knight himself over losing in a joust. Many people look at you, Gregor Clegane, and see an unbeatable foe. Many look at you as a literal mountain that cannot be scaled, climbed, or beaten, a true monster of a man if there ever was one. But do you know what I have learned in my years fighting monsters? In days long past, I'll tell you, I learned no matter how big or bad the monster is, none of them have ever been able to withstand being struck by lightning through the heart, said Naruto in front of Gregor Clegane from where he stood with Ser Loras getting up with a look of awe in his eyes. Father, asked Sansa while Ned put his hand on her arm. Watch Sansa say or do nothing. Normally I would have you look away, but sadly it is a must that you look and see why this man is to be feared above all others throughout the 7 kingdoms, whispered Ned while feeling his very hair rising along his arm and in the back of his neck. He knew what Naruto was referring to about lightning through the heart, since he had done it during the Greyjoy rebellion against one of Balon Greyjoy's most trusted naval commanders. It had been a horrifying experience to see through the spyglass on the ship he had been on when sailing for the Iron Islands, but to see it so close like this now was even worse, since the electrical current he was feeling was much stronger. Everyone watched in awe, shock, and some even in horror as Naruto went through the hand signs before going into the necessary stand to form the jutsu his former sensei was famous for creating, focusing his right hand to form the infamous jutsu. Naruto stared right into the mountain's eyes, which were now wide in shock and even a hint of fear in them too, since the reality of the situation seemed to finally dawn on the long-proclaimed rabid dog of Tywin Lannister. How are you doing that? Asked Loras as he saw the lightning jutsu form in Naruto's hand and form a long pointed tip not unlike one would see on a sword, with a great deal control brought on by years of training, discipline, pain, and patience beyond all measure. You think forming this is difficult? You should see what happened to me when I first tried to form it. I destroyed my poor hand and had to wait days for it to regenerate bone by bone, nerve by nerve, the blood vessels and muscle tissue mapping themselves around my hand before the skin could finally grow to cover them. It hurt a lot, answered Naruto before standing fully and supporting his right hand with his left. I can only imagine, whispered Loras in shock and awe at seeing lightning like that in the palm of someone's hand. It was like seeing a god at work in his eyes. Gregor Clegane, in the name of all the men, women, and children you have murdered and raped over the years, as well as in the name of all the men, women, and children you would murder in the future, I hereby pronounce sentence upon your person in the name of justice that is long overdue. I take your worthless life from this world, and with this very lightning in my hand to bring out, delivering a punishment worthy of the old gods and the new, declared Naruto with his Sharingan now active, and saw Gregor Clegane struggling harder now to escape. Great sage, if you kill the mountain, then Tywin Lannister will seek punishment for this attack on his prized weapon, warned Loras, knowing the lion was not one to take such an act lying down. If Tywin Lannister has a problem with my actions, he can come see me personally and I'll gladly explain to him. In the meantime, you may want to look away, Ser Loras. This is going to get really messy real fast, stated Naruto before crouching slightly and angling the Raikiri in a downward angle and ran straight toward Gregor Clegane. No one could speak. How could they? Their eyes were transfixed on the sight of the Sage of Legend. Uses power to not only restrain the mountain that rides, but to move in for a kill with lightning of all things in his hand. Even the mountain, for all his initial struggles to get free, found himself unable to move at the sight of the Raikiri aimed at his body. Squelch. Even when Naruto struck Gregor in the chest, the man didn't fully realize his life was about to end painfully until a few long silent seconds following it. Of course, by that point the current of electricity running into his body from the Raikiri was spreading out, melting the giant man's insides and even melting the armor into Gregor's skin. And when the pain finally did register in his brain, all the mountain that rides could do was scream out in an almost unholy scream of agony, a scream that many bards would sing and tell about how it echoed throughout the Seven Kingdoms. When Naruto pulled his hand out, he flicked the blood off his hand and stared down at the body now hitting the ground with his shadow clone undoing the Uzumaki chakra chains before dispelling. Don't bother trying to remove the armor from his body, it's completely melted into his flesh. I have essentially made the armor his tomb, said Naruto before walking away from the smoldering corpse that was once Gregor the mountain that rides Clegane. The entire time no one moved, no one cheered, no one clapped, no one did anything. All they could do was stare at the sight of the mountain that rides having become the mountain that rode struck down, nay destroyed, by what many considered to be a single bolt of lightning in the hands of man, who was the closest thing to a god a mortal being could possibly be in life. That is, until someone stood up and actually started clapping. That person, Ned Stark, the hand of the king himself. Everyone now turned to look at him, clapping over what Naruto had done to Gregor Clegane, his eyes showing approval, the act itself, and his belief that justice was finally done. Looking over at Robert's chair, Ned saw the man looking at him for a few seconds to share a silent communication with each other, and it was after this mental talk was done did the king stand as well with his own hands in motion to start clapping. This was soon followed by Renly, Ser Barristan, and soon many of the common folk around them started clapping as well. Even Sandor Clegane clapped his hands with a smile on his face that you couldn't remove regardless of the method used to do it. Everyone here knew of the mountain's infamous reputation, what he had done to people in the past and had no doubt done in the present. Before the tournament, the men and children dead by his hands, the countless number of women the man had raped following the sacking of a house or a town he felt needed to be burned to the ground, and for every sinful deed done the man had been protected somehow by one Tywin of House Lannister. The Lion had constantly bought for Gregor's continued freedom with the seemingly endless mountain of gold he sat on, and in return Tywin had purchased the might of House Clegane to be called upon at a moment's notice and put a golden collar on the mad dog with the words property of House Lannister on it. And now that mad dog had just been put down. When the clapping finally died down, Sandor Clegane walked over to the dead body, still smoking like cooked meat from the lightning destroying Gregor from the inside. He none too gently kicked his dead brother over to see the deformed face of the brother who had at one point deformed Sandor's own face as a child, and kneeled down to inspect this now unrecognizable face. It was actually poetic justice in a sense for the Hound to see his older brother like this, since the man had caused pain to everyone around him, no matter who they were. Sandor had even suspected Gregor of killing their sister and their father, but could never prove it, though deep down in his heart the Hound knew his brother was a kinslayer, and would not be ashamed of it. The only reason the Mountain never admitted to it was because the act of kinslaying was considered the worst kind of killing there was in all of the Seven Kingdoms. Not even Tywin Lannister and all the gold in Casterly Rock could protect Gregor from such crimes if proven true. Not that it mattered now. You killed our sister and father, you fucking bastard. You scarred my face over a toy I was playing with. You've killed countless people, men and children, and raped countless women without remorse or regret. Now look at you, dead, charred, cooked all over like a roasted pig on a stick. You must have been in a lot of pain beyond imagining before the end and death came to finish you off good. I personally don't care how you died so long as you are dead. My only regret now is I wasn't the one to do it personally, except in my dreams, and I have dreamed of killing you, Gregor. The only reason I haven't is because I am not a kinslayer. I'm not you. I will never be the monster you were in life, but despite your shadow casting itself over mine in terms of deeds, at least I can say I outlived you and didn't die this way. The way a monster should die, replied Sandor before he got up and walked away from the dead body of his brother and began to secretly decide what to do next with his life. Now that his brother was no longer in it, the lands of the Vale, the group led by Catelyn Stark traveled along the road toward the Vale where her sister Lisa Tully Arryn had fled with her son Robin following her husband's death. She knew coming here was a risk given how Lisa, in a state of panic, had sent a message via Raven to Cat About how the Lannisters had killed her husband to bring one of the Lannisters to the Vale would not sit well with Lisa or any of the Knights of the Vale, since they were all loyal to Jon Arryn. That loyalty transferred over to Lisa and her son upon Jon's death, so any dislike Lisa had toward the Lannisters they would also have too, and would gladly kill Tyrion if given the order. But Catelyn needed Tyrion alive. Through all of this, Naruto had explained as much to her that the physically small Lannister was more valuable alive than dead, not to mention the man was also innocent of the attempted murder of Bran and the murder of Jon Arryn. Not that Lisa would see it that way. Over the years the younger of the two Tully women had grown distant from each other, and Lisa had become spiteful of Cat for the older woman's marriage being a success, something Lisa's marriage to Jon had not, even with young Robin being born as a result of it. "Why are we heading here down this road?" asked Tyrion curiously, since he had never been down this way before. "Today a slight change in plans. We are making for the Vale of Arryn, but not the usual route. I fear it is no longer safe to go the usual way to see my sister Lisa, and if we're to clear up some matters we will need to get there safely," explained Cat, knowing the secret path to the Vale was probably the best one right now. "All makes sense," replied Tyrion while the group traveled carefully along the road. "Don't worry, Tyrion, nothing bad will happen to you or anyone else here. I won't allow it," said the shadow clone of Naruto while patting the short man's shoulder. "I still can't believe I'm traveling along the road with the demon sage of all people. I have so many questions to ask you that I don't even know which one to ask first," said Tyrion, since he had only met the man briefly in Winterfell but never had the courage to ask him any questions. "Start with the most obvious one and work from there," answered Naruto calmly. "Okay, how did you do what you did? And don't say magic. I want an actual answer," said Tyrion while Naruto laughed. "You're referring to the inn when I made everyone seem frozen in time while you, Cat, Roderick and myself were the only ones not looking like statues. The truth is I cast a weak illusion that freezes the minds of those it's cast on without them even realizing it actually happened," commented Naruto with Tyrion nodded. "Weak? They were practically frozen like statues. I could have picked everyone's pocket and not one of them would have realized it was me," said Tyrion with Naruto smirk. "True, but you wouldn't do that because a Lannister does not steal money, he mines and spends it at his leisure," replied Naruto with Tyrion letting out a chuckle. "Yes, I prefer to spend money on the simple things in life. Food, wine and whores make much better uses of gold, certainly over hiring assassins to kill a boy and possibly future Lord of the North," commented Tyrion while Naruto smiled behind his mask. "Don't mind Lady Stark and her passion that you saw back at the inn when she had all those knights draw their swords against you. That's the Tully in her. They have always been a passionate bunch, some more than others. Add to the fact someone tried to kill her son makes Catelyn even more passionate. Never cross a woman when her son is being threatened, especially if the woman just so happens to be a Tully," said Naruto with Tyrion nodding. "I wouldn't know what a mother is like, and if mine would have defended me. She died when I was born. My father blames me for it, and rightfully so, considering my deformed body caused her death," replied Tyrion with a hint of sadness in his voice. "You are not responsible for her death, Tyrion, no matter what your father thinks on the matter," replied Naruto with Tyrion smiling amusingly at him. "Don't hear him say that he will run you through with his sword," commented Tyrion, as he knew what his father thought when it came to him, and there was nothing but disdain. "I'm serious, Tyrion. You wouldn't be the first person to have involuntarily killed their mother when being born. It happens randomly and with properly developed babies. That your physical stature is merely an excuse for him to hate you further," said Naruto with Tyrion shrugging. "That makes me feel a little bit better, if only slightly," replied Tyrion, while Naruto just smirked. "I would think knowing that your own father, the great Tywin Lannister, is wrong about you would be a huge ego boost. Not many can say they know Tywin Lannister is wrong about something," said Naruto with Tyrion smirking. "Since that was indeed true, now that you mention it I do feel better, thank you," replied Tyrion, since he would hold on to that information for future use. Any further conversation was suddenly interrupted when the group was ambushed by the hill tribes that lived around these parts of the Vale. The musician of the group traveling to the Vale had been hit in the head by a giant rock twice the size his head and was the start of the hill tribes ambushing them. While the hill tribes had the advantage of the ambush for a few seconds, the knights they were attacking were quick to react and were effectively pushing them back to the hill tribes in the Vale, lacking any skills in the way of wielding weapons. Add to the fact Naruto's shadow clone was there to even the odds quickly enough with his staff speed and skills in taijutsu. But what really ended the fighting was Naruto's use of the Mokutan bloodline in forming wooden spikes to shoot up out of the ground. Naruto had developed it years ago and calling it the Sea of Bloody Trees Jutsu, with the name speaking for itself on what happens to those it's used on. Countless spikes shot out of the ground, piercing body after body of hill tribesmen and shooting them up off the ground to stay impaled for all to see while blood dripped down the wooden spikes, making it look Like a sea of blood-stained trees. Your first kill, asked a sellsword by the name of Bronn, who had come on this little adventure because he knew something was going to happen and could get paid well if he played his cards right. Is it that obvious, asked Tyrion, who had used his small stature to his advantage and surprised everyone when he saved Catelyn Stark from harm by using a downed shield as a blunt object on a hill tribesman, aiming to kill the Tully womanite. His first kills for most people are usually the hardest, said Bronn, since he had seen people kill for the first time and go into a state of shock or disbelief. Any particular remedy to take my mind off of it, asked Tyrion, with Bronn nodding. Do you need a woman? Nothing like a woman after a fight, said Bronn, while speaking like someone who had experience in these matters. Well, I'm willing if she is, replied Tyrion, with Bronn laughing and the two sharing a moment of laughter. Before focusing on the task at hand, we need to get out of here before more of them come snooping around. Gather up your supplies so we can get to the Vale. The sooner the better, replied Naruto, with the two nodding and the group, now slightly reduced in number, quickly moving out. King's Landing, unknown location. Varys walked through the forest outside of King's Landing. Ordinarily he didn't venture this far out of his domain of the capital, but this was a special occasion. He was meeting with the one person here no one could find, and the one person who Varys had quite the healthy respect for since he was a child. Hearing the stories he was meeting with the demon sage. Your movements are very quiet, you could almost pass for an assassin the way you are able to move so silently, commented Naruto while sitting in mediation and surrounded by nature. He also did it to get away from the people in the city and get some fresh air so his nose wouldn't be so damaged from the smell of shit everywhere. Add to the fact the people were trying to hound him over killing the mountain was becoming a pain in the ass. He didn't do it for them like they no doubt believed. Naruto killed the mountain simply due to the fact the man needed to die for crimes long overdue. The only reason he hadn't done it sooner was to teach Ned and others like him a lifelong lesson surrounding other people you trust. Ned had trusted Robert to punish Gregor and Amory Lorch after the sacking of King's Landing for what they did, or rather what they think they did, under the command of Tywin Lannister to show fealty to the new king of Westeros. The life lesson Naruto wanted to teach Ned back then was the true character of a man is to give them power and see what he does with it. Does he do what you would have done, or does he do the opposite? Does the man you know betray you and the convictions the two of you both believed in growing up? Does he spare the monsters employed by others merely because they did something he believed was right when deep down you know they are not? Naruto had hoped Ned would have eventually taken action against the mountain, but the man was too honorable for his own damn good. Ned was a good leader, no question, but at the same time Ned put too much faith in people believing in the same things he did and trusting them to follow the same path without even considering the idea they might think differently. Alas, with his life lesson for Ned and others around him being a complete flop, Naruto had used the tourney and the mountain's own actions as an excuse to end his life. And if Tywin Lannister did have a problem with this, the elderly lion could certain seek him out to have a discussion on the issue. Your love of nature is indeed something to behold, great sage, said Varys calmly while he walked toward and stopped a few feet from him. Sit, commanded Naruto, while Varys gave a polite smile but kept standing. Thank you, great sage, but I would prefer to stand. Grass and dirt stains are hard to get out, not to mention suspicious if seen by those who would seek to discover what I have been doing when not around the inside part of King's Landing, said Varys with Naruto looking up at him. You can either have dirt and grass stains on your clothes or blood when I slice your legs off at the knees for not obeying. Now sit, commanded Naruto coldly, with Varys sighing before he complied. Really, now must we resort to threats? I'm not your enemy, Naruto. I never have been, said Varys, while Naruto was not amused. Your actions since I left King's Landing in Robert's hands say differently, or did you think I wouldn't know about your plots and schemes to put a Targaryen back on the Iron Throne? Questioned Naruto, with Varys giving him another polite smile. I am merely doing what I must for the good of the realm. Surely you have seen what I have seen with your own 3 eyes. The poor are consumed in despair, the rich keep getting richer most if not all of the time at the expense of the poor. The crown is now 6 million in debt, no thanks to the master of coin. The current king drinks, hunts, and has sexual relations with whores while siring about 20 bastards to his bloodline, all of which he would never acknowledge as his own. Not all that surprising, since he barely does with the 3 children that are supposed to be his own legitimate ones in the first place. When King Robert does die, by whatever may come his way, the Iron Throne and the kingdom as a whole will fall into madness, unless someone strong can take control. While Robert was a great general and fighter when it came to leading armies in war, he is sadly not a king, not a proper one anyway. Neither is his brother Stannis or Renly, given the former is too militarily strict in how he rules, and the other, well, we both know how the master of law has little chance of marrying a woman to sire a legitimate heir of his own to keep House Baratheon on it, answered Varys while Naruto narrowed his 3 eyes at him. And so you back the Targaryens, the original bloodline that ruled over Westeros and made The Iron Throne, said Naruto with Varys nodding. Considering the other candidates, I would think you would approve. Ned Stark is a great leader as well, but too trusting and naive even with you to guide him during these times of uncertainty. Shadows and deception swarming all around the capital. The man didn't even know House Bolton wanted the North and was planning to take it over when House Stark was too weak to sustain control over it. How can a man like that possibly run the Seven Kingdoms when he is blinded from seeing enemies within his own domain? Up in the north, House Tyrell is no better. They have been trying to play kingmaker for years, wanting to marry one of their own into House Targaryen to claim the throne for their house. The Queen of Thorns was the closest by far, but she decided to take control of her own destiny rather than be married off to a man who had been arranged for her. And as for the Lannisters, do I need to even go that far? Not that it matters, since they married into the current kingship and will have a child of their blood inherit the Iron Throne, explained Varys with Naruto nodding. Since the man did have a point, if Robert knew you were planning to have someone of Targaryen blood rise up to claim the seat of power, you would find yourself in a very nasty situation, my friend, said Naruto with Varys smiling thinly. As would you, great sage, when considering the fate of Elia Martell and her children are not what they appear, countered Varys with Naruto's eyes revealing nothing. So your little birds in Dorne finally told you when and how long have you known, questioned Naruto with Varys still smiling thinly. Not that long. My birds had to work hard to get close to the royal family, earn their trust as servants, and learn the truth about all three of them being alive. Not to mention getting the information out to me without being caught is much more difficult in Dorne, all due to the secrecy behind the fact members of the Targaryen royal family still live in different regions of Essos. Readers' two children are safe in Dorne. The Mad King Aerys' two own children, Daenerys and Viserys, are part of a Dothraki horde belonging to Khal Drogo, with word reaching me that the girl is pregnant with Khal Drogo's child, a son possibly, if the rumors are to be believed, said Very with Naruto just looking at him. And what will you do with that information surrounding Rhaegar's children still being alive with their mother? Hold it over my head. Tell Robert the horrible truth that they are alive and have grown strong in Dorne since they escaped the sacking of King's Landing, asked Naruto with Varys shaking his head. No, it would do little in gaining his favor. Besides, we both know the man well enough that he would order every assassin in the Seven Kingdoms after them. If that happens, it will cause a rift between Lord Stark and King Robert, and cause new untold problems for the realm. Not to mention all the supporters of House Targaryen still around will rise up to fight Robert's right to rule when the opportunity presents itself, replied Varys while he saw Naruto nodding. That and Rhaegar's children are your ace in the hole in the event Daenerys or Viserys fail in their quest for the Iron Throne, surmised Naruto, since he knew Varys always had a backup plan in place in the event something went wrong. You know me all too well, great sage. I almost wish you would take the throne yourself and rule. You would make a far better king than Robert or his predecessor following his time filled with madness, said Varys while Naruto shook his head. I have seen what that chair does to people. If it doesn't drive them to madness, it drives them to ruin and becoming a shadow of their former selves. Besides, I'm a sage to the end and prefer to keep myself away from such things, said Naruto with Varys shrugging at his response. I had to ask just in case you ever thought of becoming a king. I know there are many who would support you, especially after the incident at the tournament where you killed the mountain. That alone will get you the support of the small folk and all the families of those who lost loved ones to him, replied Varys before he stood up gracefully. The mountain had his death coming. I just sped things up. For now the two of us are on the same page, Varys. I wish for us to stay that way in the near and distant future, said Naruto with Varys nodding. As do I, great sage, replied Varys and moved to walk away before his arm was grabbed by Naruto. Good, because I want to make something perfectly clear to you right now so there are no misunderstandings between us. I want stability for the realm. Robert's rule is coming to an end and a dark time will come with it ending. I want to keep this darkness from getting out of hand and spreading throughout the Seven Kingdoms. Whatever side I take, you are to side with me and ensure the person who succeeds Robert, if only for a short time, even if they are regent, will not have their rule impeded by you or anyone else on the small council, but the king or queen who takes the throne as your complete backing. If I say they are worthy, if you support anyone else or try to weaken them for your own gains, I will annihilate you in every sense of the word, Varys. Not just your body, but your mind, your very soul. Do you understand me, said Naruto with Varys nodding once and had an impassive look on his face. I learned long ago not to cross you, great sage. I am not Littlefinger. I know where my limits are and know where not to reach for things I shouldn't. If such things play out, I will side with whoever has your backing in the event King Robert perishes and his son is considered not qualified to rule. All I ask is that the person who sits on the throne be one with the capability to rule well and save Westeros from itself, replied Very before the hand on his arm was no longer there and he walked away. Small council room. Sometime later Ned walked into the room and was surprised to See Robert there, and not just that, but the man was sober and serious all in one. Ned hadn't really seen him like this since the war against the Targaryens, which meant some extremely serious news surrounding the Mad King's children had reached the king's ears and had his undivided attention. The whore is pregnant, said Robert angrily while throwing the parchment on the table for Ned to pick up and read, and asked Ned like this was not bad news. And she's pregnant, meaning her child, if it's a son, could rally that Dothraki horde his father has now and march them here to do 7 hells knows what. I won't have it, Ned, I won't allow it, exclaimed Robert angrily. You're speaking of murdering a child that hasn't even been born yet, protested Ned with Robert's anger rising. I warned you this would happen back in the north when I showed you the message of how the bitch had married Khal Drogo. I warned you, but you didn't care to hear it. Well, hear it now. I want them dead, the mother and child both. I also want that fool Viserys dead too. I can't risk him siring an army of heirs either. Is that plain enough for you? I want them both dead, commanded Robert while Naruto appeared in the room at that time. You'll dishonor yourself forever if you do, protested Ned while Robert's face became red with anger. I'm almost tempted to use the Edo Tensei to bring Lyanna Stark back to life just so she can hear what Robert is saying, but that would probably kill him, and knowing she would never approve of it while saying such things to his face, thought Naruto while he saw the king getting angry over Ned's words. Honor, I've got 7 kingdoms to rule, 1 king, 7 kingdoms. Do you think honor keeps them all in line, all the high and low lords living in them, in the south, the west, the east, and the north? Do you think honor keeps the peace? No, it's fear that keeps the peace, Ned. Fear and blood, exclaimed Robert while Ned narrowed his eyes at him and became cold, as the winters in the north then were no better than the Mad King. Then we replaced one form of madness for that of another, Ned shot back, and Robert looked to be getting angrier. Careful, Ned, be very careful what you say to me now and next, warned Robert to his old friend. You want to assassinate a little girl who recently became a woman and mother due to being pregnant with a child that knows nothing of why it is targeted by most of the men in this room. And for what? Because the spider here heard a rumor from one of his little birds, challenged Ned with Varys shaking his head. Not a rumor, my lord. The princess of House Targaryen is indeed with child, replied Varys at last while glancing over at Naruto. Based on whose information? asked Ned, since he was sure Varys knew the source of the information. Ser Jorah Mormont. He felt this information was worth a pardon for his past crimes for slavery. The king agrees that it is worthy, and the papers are being written up as we speak to pardon the man so that he may return home. Hero, replied Varys with Ned scowling angrily. Even if what you say is true, Lord Varys, the murdering of this girl and her unborn child is wrong. You know it is wrong, Robert, but your anger is blinding you. The narrow sea lies between us. I will fear the Dothraki when they teach their horses to ride one water, exclaimed Ned with Robert getting angrier at him. I agree with Ned on this one, Robert. Do not provoke what does not need to be provoked in the first place, or you'll end up losing everything you have gained. Do nothing, added Naruto with Robert not liking his response either. So that's your answer to this? Do nothing, that's your wise advice? Do nothing until our enemies are at our shores, backed by those here who would support them in secret and create a foothold for them when the time is right. All of you, you're on this small council for a reason. Speak sense to this honorable fool and this sage who both think we should do nothing, exclaimed Robert while looking at the men in this room to support his decision. Personally, I bear this girl no ill will, Lord Stark, but should the Dothraki invade, how many innocents will die? How many villages will be burned down? Men killed, women raped, and children enslaved to these barbarians, all because we did nothing. Now is it not wiser, Kinder, even that should she die now that tens of thousands of lives might live? asked Pycelle with Naruto narrowing his eyes at him. Says the man on the Lannister payroll, and secretly betrayed Jon Arryn when he inquired about the book on the lineage of noble houses of Westeros. You told Cersei and Jaime what Jon was doing, and Littlefinger offered his help knowing he could get someone close to Jon in a way that poisoning him wouldn't be difficult, thought Naruto while glancing from Pycelle to Littlefinger. We should have had them both killed them years ago, added Renly after Pycelle. When you find yourself in bed with an ugly woman, it's best to close your eyes and get it over with. Just cut her throat and be done with it, said Peter with Ned frowning further, and Naruto narrowed his eyes. The voice of experience, I take it, but what ugly woman is he referring to with his words? The man runs countless brothels in King's Landing and is surrounded by beautiful women despite their profession. I wonder, thought Naruto, since he was now starting to see a hidden piece of the puzzle from a new angle and a new suspicion of sorts regarding Lord Baelish's time around Cat's family. I followed you into war, Robert, not one but twice. Without question, without any form of hesitation, without doubt, to your cause, without second thoughts on whether what we were doing was right or not. But I will not follow you now. The Robert the First grew up with didn't tremble in the shadow of an unborn child, said Ned when he now walked up to the table standing between him and Robert. She dies, said Robert coldly with his tone saying the decision was final. I will have no part in it, countered Ned, just as coldly. You're the king's hand, Lord Stark, you will do As you are told, or I will find a hand who can and will, said Robert, and expecting Ned to fold over the issue, only to be surprised when Ned took off the pendant stating his position as Hand of the King and put it on the table. Hard and good luck to him. I thought you to be a better man, but now I see the madness that once plagued the Mad King has once again taken another king I once called a brother, said Ned before he turned around and began walking out of the room, with Robert now going into a rage. Out, get out, damn you, Ned, I am done with you. Go on then, run back to Winterfell. I will have your head on a pike before the day's end. I'll put it there myself, you damn fool, Robert called out to Ned's retreating form, while Naruto sighed and shaking his head. Your anger will be your undoing, Robert. By the time you realize this it will be too late, said Naruto sadly, before there was a ripple around his form and the sage was gone. Tower of the Hand. Naruto later appeared in Ned's room, the Northern Man, ignoring him while he packed his things in a hurry and didn't care about the sudden entry into the room. It wouldn't matter anyway, since room wouldn't be his for much longer, nor did he mind that Jory came in moments later. Seeing the concerned and fierce look on the former Hand's face, get the men ready to leave. Don't ask for anyone's help, do it yourself, commanded Ned, knowing anyone outside of his own men and servant moving stuff would only give the enemies here a chance to stop them. Yes, my lord. Also, Lord Baelish is here to see you, said Jory before he bowed and let the master of coin before setting out to do his duty. What do you want, Littlefinger? I'm busy, asked Ned while moving around the room quickly. For one, his grace went on about you in some length after you took your leave. He does offer the sage his gratitude for slaying the Mountain. The king didn't have a chance to do so after the tourney, and this matter with the Targaryen girl popped up. Impressive on how you killed him, by the way, remarked Peter, while the memory of the Mountain's death was burned forever into his brain and still trying to figure out how the sage made a blade of lightning form in his hand. What can I do for you, Lord Baelish? My time is short and my temper right now is even shorter, questioned Ned, with Peter smiling thinly at him as yes, the second reason as to why I'm here. When do you return to Winterfell? Asked Peter, with Ned frowning in confusion. Why do you care? Asked Ned, with Peter still smiling at him. If you're still here in King's Landing by nightfall, I will take you to the last person Jon Arryn spoke to before falling ill. If that sort of thing still interests you, of course, said Peter, with words clearly trying to bait Ned into agreeing. I don't have the time. Or has your memory of what happened in the small council room with Robert somehow left your memory? Asked Ned, with Peter looking undeterred. It won't take more than an hour, I assure you, said Peter, with Ned frowning in thought before looking at Naruto. Should I risk it? Asked Ned in a whisper, with Naruto nodding. You might as well, Ned, though I won't lie and say that I suspect this to be some kind of trap someone is setting now that you have removed yourself as Hand of the King. One of the perks of that job, in terms of no one messing with you openly, is now gone, Naruto whispered back, with Ned nodding in agreement before summoning Jory to his room. Round up the men, all of them. I want them stationed outside the girls' chambers. Who are your best swords? Commanded Ned fiercely. Huggard and will, answered Jory. Find them and meet me at the stables, commanded Ned, with Jory leaving to carry out his orders. The Vale. Sometime later, Naruto watched from his position near the wall of the large room as he stared up at Lisa Tully Aaron of the Vale. She wasn't pretty like Catelyn had been in their youth. Out of the two of them, it seemed Lisa got the short end of the stick in just about everything, from her seemingly loveless marriage to Jon Arryn to her beauty in the looks department. It was clear Lisa did not age gracefully like her sister did. Over the years, as time went by, even the number of children both women had brought screaming into the world was almost a competition, with Kat's 5 outdoing Lisa's 1, especially since the one and only boy Lisa had birthed was even now of all times breastfeeding off of her when the boy was clearly too old for such things. It was like looking into the mirror and seeing a what-if scenario playing out. What if Kat become bitter in her marriage to Ned? Had she become bitter about Jon Stark being with them in Winterfell? Had Ned not told her the truth about his parentage? Naruto knew she was made of sterner stuff, but Lisa was clearly not, and it showed in her disdain for seeing her sister again after so long. It didn't help that Catelyn had brought Tyrion Lannister of all people with her to the Vale. But that's not the only thing off here. The boy has been clearly pampered way too much and hasn't done anything his entire life. His mother has done everything for him to the point where he just relies on her to do everything. But why in this manner? Aside from the fact she cherishes him to the point of fanatical craziness, there's something more here, thought Naruto while really looking at the boy carefully with all 3 of his eyes and analyzing him at every angle before his eyes widened and the pieces fit further into place. How dare you bring that thing here, and without my permission you pollute my home with his presence. Your aunt has done a very bad thing, Robin, a very bad thing. You remember your aunt, don't you? Isn't he beautiful and strong too? Jon knew it. His last words were, the seed is strong. Before dying he wanted everyone to know what a good strong boy his son would grow up to be in the future. Look at him, dear sister, look at the future Lord of the Vale, exclaimed Lisa, while she pampered her son even now with him breastfeeding in front of everyone Cat Naruto and even Bronn for all his own crudeness thought it was disturbing to see for a child that old to be breastfed. Tyrion just found amusement in it and would have made a joke if not for the fact he was a Lannister in a hostile area where Lannisters are not well liked, and being the least liked among his own house didn't exactly help here either. That boy is many things, but the rightful Lord of the Vale he is not an Aaron but a bastard child of House Baelish of Peter Baelish to be exact. Makes sense, the kid looks nothing like Jon Arryn even in his younger years, but no one here remembers what the man looks like as a young man, so no one would question it, but I can see the features clearly enough that they match Littlefinger exactly. Jon was constantly working as Hand of the King for years in King's Landing with no real time for his wife, while Peter was no doubt able to comfort the woman when Jon was busy. Thought Naruto as he had Peter's energy signature in his mind and compared it to Robin's own and saw the two signatures intertwine perfectly. It was basically a DNA test without the DNA. The two were similar to the point where Naruto could say both were related to each other without question. It made sense why Lisa doted over Robin and spoiled the boy every second of ever damn day. Robin was Peter's only child and the only one Lisa could possibly have with him without raising any questions to the parentage, even more so now that Jon Arryn was dead. And any child she carried following the elderly man's death would possibly raise questions. Mommy, is that a bad man? Asked Robin curiously, while Naruto thought the boy was clearly an idiot. It is, Robin dear, it is a very bad man, replied Lisa with her eyes swimming in madness. Compared to the likes of Littlefinger and some other people I could mention, Tyrion is a king, thought Naruto while Lisa was petting her son on the head. He's Tyrion, the imp of House Lannister. He killed your father. He killed the Hand of the King, stated Lisa while Tyrion looked amused. Oh, have I killed him too? I'm a very bad man if I did that, joked Tyrion while Catelyn glared at him for joking. At a time like this you will watch your tongue. These men are the Knights of the Vale. They all love Jon Arryn and they would die for him, replied Lisa sharply while glaring at Tyrion. But if you touch me then my brother Jaime Lannister will see that you and these Knights of the Vale do in fact die, warned Tyrion with Lisa bristling at the threat, and Robin for all his spoiled short-mindedness took offense to the words. You can't hurt us, no one can hurt us. Tell him, mommy, tell him, said Robin, who was practically yelling like a spoiled child with his words echoing throughout the large room. Tyrion, you're making it worse. Joking about this is not only inappropriate but prevents her from listening to your case and being innocent of these charges, commented Naruto, though he figured Lisa or Robin wouldn't listen no matter what. One was clearly going or had gone completely mad and the other had been spoiled stupid by said mad person, and they were both the highest authority in the Vale. True, but something tells me she doesn't want to listen even if the truth was staring her right in the face, countered Tyrion with Naruto shrugging. Since the smaller man had a point, he's not wrong. There's something in that woman's eyes that doesn't sit right with me, whispered Bronn with Naruto nodding. You and me both. I just wish Tyrion would see it as clearly as we do, whispered Naruto while Bronn grimacing. Ser Vardis, my sister's tiny guest, is clearly weary from his travels. Take him down to the cells below where he can rest. Introduce him to Mord, commanded Lisa while Tyrion saw the man named Vardis walking toward him. Who or what is Mord? asked Bronn with Naruto frowning. I don't know, but Tyrion is unfortunately going to find out, replied Naruto with Vardis taking Tyrion away. Why don't you interfere? You have all this magic and power at your command. You could easily fix this in your own way, so why don't you? asked Bronn curiously with Naruto looking where Tyrion was being taken, because Tyrion still has a mindset where he believes being a Lannister and the amount of gold his house possesses can get him out of anything, not to mention he thinks the names of those like Jaime or his father will make people think twice before messing with him. I see a lot of potential in Tyrion to be something more than a lord, using his house's name to get away with things he may or may not have done. Sadly, in order to break him out of such mentality, Tyrion also needs to experience the harshness of reality of what it means to be a prisoner of someone who hates Lannisters more than they love gold or fear certain Lannisters. When named Tyrion needs to learn that being a Lannister or High Lord does not always give him ground to do whatever he wants, and that people won't always let him, replied Naruto with Bronn nodding. It will be a harsh lesson to be sure, said Bronn, knowing the woman on her throne here in the Vale would make Tyrion's life very miserable. True, but most life lessons have to be, my friend, otherwise we end up like that, said Naruto in a whispered tone while pointing slightly at Robin once more. Breastfeeding in front of everyone? Good point, whispered Bronn, since the sight before him was just wrong in his eyes.